thinking we should just get started, just having conversations and whatnot about things and stuff. So, Mark, get on up here, man. Have one of them chairs.
You don't have to sit if you don't want to, but we'll talk for a while. Not necessarily. I mean, you're welcome to sit.
Sit.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Brett Luer, somehow nominated and elected, and keep electing myself shadow president of this fine group.
You are indeed.
Nebraska Independent Film Projects started in 1991 in Lincoln by some employees from the PBS affiliate there, designed to be a fiscal sponsor project for a bunch of art projects they had going for federal grants. And it just kept going from there. I've been a part of the group since 2001, where I met these two yahoos and some other yahoos. You were in there in 2001-ish, right?
Ish.
Andrew as well. We meet every month in Lincoln. We made it a point to get down here for 2 meetings in Omaha this year. So we've done 2 of those now.
Right under the wire.
Right under the wire. Back to back with our friends at OFF. We're having an event here tomorrow night to kick off Fall Filmmaker Mixer. Are we still calling it a mixer?
I'm thinking about calling it Procrastinator's Ball.
And
we usually get about 24 entries on the week after our regular deadline. So
I can dig it. I've been
but
there.
Fall
Guilty.
Mixer. Yeah.
So, if we can help you, like I said, our website and Facebook page are designed to kind of connect people in a geographic area where not a lot of people make film, but once you get in those circles and hey, you meet this guy and he knows that guy and she makes films too. So if you're having trouble finding a sound guy, lighting guy, writer, they're all there. It's just getting in that social media current. And we aim to help people because we like to make stuff.
I think that's the big deal. Is yes, we are a group of makers. If you want to make or are making, we want to hear what's going on. Very quickly, I don't want to bore you, but I am the treasurer of NIFP. My name is Chad. I control the checkbook.
Hey, Chad. Hey.
That's right. Be nice to me. I have the checkbook. So we have a fiscal sponsorship. Okay. And that's the whole reason this organization was sort of built. What that basically allows is for fiscal, we can act as a fiscal agent that allows you as filmmaker members who've been approved to use our nonprofit status to apply for grants from other, from foundations and other organizations that require a 501c3 or something of that nature to apply for a grant. Or if you have a rich uncle that wants to give you, $5 grand to make the movie, you can offer him a tax deductible donation. We take a little tiny piece off the top because that's how any good sort of money laundering institution works.
We do host educational events also.
It's true. It's true. But and yes, exactly. What do we do with the money? That's always sort of a big question. It buys these wonderful beverages and snacks for each of our meetings, so please enjoy. Well, we were at Kmart today. Sorry. And yes, I got tea. Educational events. We've got. We would love to be able to get more sponsorships and more money because we've got other programs. We've got grant programs and things like that for filmmakers as well. So if you are thinking about a project, or if you're in the middle or start of your fundraising campaign, let's chat a little bit. We'll see if we can fit into that somehow and help you sort of add a tiny little incentive that may push somebody over the top to give you those big bucks. All right? That said,
Let's go down. Let's just kick it off. If there's no new business, let's move on to old business. Wait. Introduce yourself. What kind of projects have you worked on that have gotten various degrees of distribution?
okay, all right. My name is Chad, as I said before. Chad Hallchild. I am with Unfiltered Entertainment, producer and DP. We have 2 feature films in distribution. We've tried the self-distribution route with web series, and we have a new film, Corruptor, that we're just jumping back into the distribution scene with. So, Dorothy?
I'm Dorothy. I'm a writer, director, producer with Unfiltered Entertainment, and basically what Chad said, free distribution.
I'm Brent Lubert and was production manager on a film called Growing Cities that eventually aired on PBS. And so I'm here to talk about how that got to distribution, but from my production manager angle. Dan and Andrew, Dan director and Andrew was a cinematographer. They're both in different cities right now, so you get me first.
Production manager.
I'm here.
Super important. Thanks, man.
Right.
Hi, I'm Mark Tinian. I have 2 feature films that I've written and directed that are in distribution, so we'll talk about those.
Dave Weiss. We have 2 films, one Black Luck, which has feature distribution and with indie rights, and then Shakespeare's Noodles is a short film that has distribution with Hughes Pictures out of New York City.
My name is Tim, and I just sold a feature to Fox Searchlight called Cocaine Grace. So we'll talk about that more.
Cool. Well, let's start and go the opposite way, since Tim's story is the most interesting and ramping up as we speak here. My first question to you all is, what was your goal going into the process?
It was a 5-year-long project for me. Like, HBO had the rights first, and they dropped it. And then so I kind of gave up on it. And then I was going to self-produce it, and then Fox Searchlight picked it up kind of at the last moment. So it's been a long process, like seriously, like almost 5 years for me to even get it picked back up. And it's been frustrating. But it's kind of like once in a lifetime chance, you know? Like you kind of get it and you land it, and then like it just kind of happens for you. And so that's what I'm appreciative of, is that I just got the opportunity to do it, and that it actually happened. As far as distribution, like, I had an attorney from Microsoft. He was he kind of helped me land the whole distribution process, and it was a lot of tedious work, for sure. But I couldn't have done it without him. There's no way I could have done it without him. I'm sounding stupid right now, I'm just rambling.
Your goal was a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll
So
keep them going when we come back.
So, like, you want us to talk about the whole process of getting distribution, or you just want to talk about the film itself, or the films, or?
I'm just kind of spreading it out. I'm talking when you went into the process, what was your ultimate goal,
Oh.
whether that's Netflix, PBS, HBO.
Honestly, it was just to finish the film.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, it's like it was forced film school for me, so that's the way we looked at it. And so we spread it out over a period of, the feature at least, we spread out over a period of a year, and it took almost a year and a half to 2 years to get to the distribution point. So it was a long process, you know, a lot of like going back and forth and changes and trying to make it better, and all these things that played out. But you know, for me, it was just like I wanted to learn. I own a production company, and so I already had clients. I couldn't take off and go to film school and start all over. And at this age, it's not going to happen anyway. And so for me, you know, I just looked at it as a challenge, and so we just had to follow through with it. So, cool.
Mr. Mark.
Yeah. My first feature I finished in 2008, so it was a lot different then, and it was more focused on DVD and that sort of a thing. And streaming wasn't really even that much of a thought at the time. So it was very different than versus fast forward 7 years later, where it was like, I don't even care about DVDs, and not that many people did either. So the process was a little bit different, looking for more of the old school way versus the new way that it was going. So
It's one of my questions.
Relate.
for later.
Yeah, the goal was to get something together for Growing Cities. Dan had gotten a grant from Dartmouth for $20,000, and then it's like, all right, here we have some resources, and we'll hit the road. So we went on the road for 3 months, and we're in the field every day. And then it was put something together. We didn't know that it would go to PBS, and it evolved over that time, especially with the community support, NIFP being one of the backers at the beginning, and then Dana here helping out with the editing through the process. And so it was like, that was in 2011, and then over the course of those years, then it was 2014 when it eventually made it to PBS. And so didn't have that. The end goal was get something good together, go out there and do it, and then it just evolved over that time period, and just the continual learning how to work and network to see where it will go.
Our first feature, we went into it very specifically looking for distribution. And we started by talking with other filmmakers that we knew had done work at a higher level, and one of those people was Dana Allman. And we talked with him about a film that he had worked on. I think it was called Kolobos, and what his experience had been like with that. And we were also reading and trying to figure out everything that we could do to prep ourselves for getting distribution. We specifically made a horror film because at the time it was a glut still, but it wasn't the glut that you see today. And we were like, this will give us a better chance. I had seen a movie called Fear of Clowns, and this would have been probably in early 2008. And it was terrible. And you could rent it at Blockbuster. And I was like, please, anyone. I think we can do better. So yeah, so in answer to the question, we specifically were like, we're gonna get some distribution.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
You don't get two answers.
Yeah. There you go.
Since I already tipped it off, and Mark mentioned 2008 was a much different time. We're talking 9 years ago, and even as mini DV cameras got bigger and the digital revolution versus 16mm film and all that, what is our end game on physical media? It's still great to have a Blu-ray or UHD copy of your media. Is there any reason that a new filmmaker starting out right now, is there any advantage to pressing a disc? Do you think?
Wow, such a great question. And I think the easy answer to that is no. I mean, that's just crazy talk. Are you kidding me? How many people here actually still buy DVDs or Blu-rays?
I do.
Why do you buy them though? I mean, do you just go to the store?
I like having a hard copy of it, just the nostalgia of it, and then I like to see all my titles like lined up on
But
the
stuff
rows.
you're in.
Oh, thanks, but no.
Right.
I'll pay for those though.
Right.
But,
Well, I'm
yeah.
just saying this. I mean, I think there are people out there that I think there's collectors out there that will buy a certain kind of movie. But I mean, the kind of stuff that we're making, there's you walk into a Walmart and you see Blood Rights on the shelf. No context whatsoever. Why would you buy that? Right? I feel like we're at a time now where it is really about the digital. It's about the streaming services that are out there. I'm not saying that we don't make Blu-rays and DVDs for the people who crew and act in our movies, because I think you do. Those are just nostalgia pieces, right? You can go back and say, I was in this movie, and that's all great. But when you really talk about, distribution, I'm always a little confused when somebody says, yeah, I really want to distribute your movie. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go, I need 50 grand up front because we're going to press a bunch of discs and we're going to be in every Walmart in the country. And I go, doesn't really make a great deal of sense to me. I don't understand that. So, you have extra thoughts on that?
No, what you said.
I guess there is a reason for a disc might be from the institutional level to like have some sort of like legal transfer of that. But then I think even within that, in terms of from a university or something, that's even going to digital too. So.
Hoopla.
I mean, I still have boxes of DVDs sitting around that I'll never get rid of unless I throw them away. Nobody wants them. And it's like, when somebody goes out, I think now, more to buy a disc, a physical disc, it's because of nostalgia, and they've seen this movie in the past, and they're like, oh, I love that movie. I want it. So they put it in their collection. But as far as doing it from something brand new, and to your point, that they have no context with, or nobody in it that they know or care about, why are they are not going to buy it anymore? So it is kind of over.
Mark, do yours have director's commentaries though?
Yes.
Good feature.
Yes. Do you want to listen to it?
When you're dead, it'll be worth something.
Yeah.
Right? No, in a good way.
Yeah.
So now, I talked to the distributor last week, and what's happening is there's a print-on-demand service that's being created. So Blade Runner is going to be all printed on demand, so overnight. So Amazon will get an order, they'll place it, it'll be shipped the next morning. So I do see that keeping DVDs and Blu-rays around, because you don't have to have that upfront investment sitting in your warehouse. And you can just, basically like a CD baby, it's just going to print them and send them out. So if you had a site, you could drop that on there that people wanted to buy your DVD or Blu-ray. It's an easy way. I think there's going to be still money in that arena, but I agree you can do a digital copy. Most people will do that way.
But it's like vinyl now. I mean, they still make, you can still get they make short runs of vinyl, even new albums. But those are for your hardcores. Those are for your, what do you call those guys? Vinophiles or whatever.
The one thing great about the print on demand though is you don't have the money's not out.
Right.
And that's what's great. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what the
that's
distributor's
true.
like, hey, what do we have to lose? Well, if we can get certain films that are doing well, we're already streaming enough, and then people start wanting that. What is it? We don't have anything. All we're doing is placing it there. They're sending the order through. It's going right to Amazon. Boom! I don't even touch it, and I get paid
On demand.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what David said. With the last movie, the last one I did before I left Seattle was called Mulletville, and we went straight to DVD on that one, and it didn't serve any purpose whatsoever. Like it really didn't. So we went to, and then we got a Netflix deal, and I just think that online streaming is probably the best way to go right now. Yeah, I just don't see, I would agree with you saying no. It doesn't serve any purpose anymore.
Just had to bring it up because I know there are people that literally buy the disc just for the director's commentary and the riff tracks and that kind of. I mean, you can add that on and try and sync it up with the streaming thing to listen to it. That's not ideal. I'm sure there's a metadata way to do that.
I think for the latest Marvel movie, I think that's true. I just don't think it's true for Corrupted.
Sure.
Who gives a shit? So.
And the thing about it is too, like, we had an offer from Monarch Home Entertainment, and we talked to them about Walmart, and they said to us, well, we can send them out. We'll do that, but it's all consigned, right? So it's not like those are, Walmart's not purchasing any of those. Those are just sitting on the shelf. If they don't sell, they're basically buying those all back, And so, in a way, right? And so they're eating it all on the cost of it. So that you can see why the distributors don't want to do it anymore. But I do think on demand will work for a while, but I would say within 3 or 4 years, I mean, it'll be completely gone probably. I mean, there'll be some occasional sales, but I don't think it'll be
All right, well, if we're digging into streaming, kind of the elephant in the room is every time I talk to independent filmmakers, they always ask, can you watch it on Netflix? And this whole, now that the streaming beast has been unleashed, every grandma just expects, I have Netflix, that's where I watch everything for $8 a month or whatever. How do we, now that there's PlayStation View and Xbox and not just the Amazon, all those, how do we cut through the Netflix or bust? I mean, some of our movies will make it to Netflix by some distribution wizardry. And I'll leave that to self-distribution later, but can you think of a positive way that you can hype your movie on the lesser, not Netflix streaming services?
That's a really great question. Okay, because yes, that is sort of that big question. Can I see it on Netflix? They're a gatekeeper, is what it comes down to. If you can have your movie on Netflix, it means you've made it, right? You've done something. You know, this is great. It's like, you know, and we're on Netflix, and
As
we
a
were.
side note, when did theatrical distribution stop
Yeah,
being
right.
like within a wheelhouse? Yeah, like we could get. Oh no, that'll never happen.
Exactly, right.
I figure it was like around 2007.
Right. So, you know, but that, you know what, Netflix has sort of become, anymore, trying to say this without being kind of bitter about it. We were told by a distributor, by the distributor that we work with, that these days, if you do not have a recognizable star in your film, that Netflix, Hulu, and others, I don't know what others actually means, more than likely will not even take a look at it. The cycle has shifted again, which kind of sucks. We were super fortunate in 2009 to get a Netflix deal for Wake the Witch, our first feature under the UB banner, and it was a nice little payday. It was freaking awesome. It felt really, really good, and that was after a VOD run on some cable stations and things like that. We did really well in 2009 with an indie flick, and with an indie horror film. But that's changed, and that's the kind of the shitty part about being an indie filmmaker, is that landscape is constantly changing. And I don't think there's any way for us to really be able to keep up with that change, because it tends to take us, if we're trying real hard, it does take 2 years to make a feature film, So yeah, I mean, I know I'm not touching on your question at all,
No.
but I mean, Netflix, because they're a gatekeeper, it still kind of is, that's what people want. People want. Amazon Prime isn't that way anymore, because anybody can put their stuff on Amazon Prime. So it's like, hey, but you can see us on Amazon Prime. It's like, oh, it's just not that cool anymore. But yeah, there's like a shit ton of other streaming platforms. And I guess the dirty little secret there is that you can make a deal with a distributor, and that distributor will put you on all of those. Now you can do it yourself too if you want to deal with all of that shit, all of that paperwork and doing all the C stuff, and just
metadata.
If you want to do all of that yourself, you could probably get on all of those streaming platforms all by yourself without having to share that with a distributor. But here's the thing, guys. If nobody watches your movie, you don't make any money. It's still a question of marketing. It's still a question of being able to get eyeballs to watch your piece, even on a free streaming service, so that you can start sharing in some of that money. So, I'm sorry, I just brought everybody down like hard. You have like things to add to my.
I would say that was the sweet and terrible thing about our Netflix deal.
Right.
They just gave us money, and then it was on Netflix, and people watched it. We didn't have to do anything. It was amazing. I will say now, the distributor that we've been working with for Corruptor, and who's also handling our second feature, which was Blood Rights, all micro-budget horrors. At this point, we're just starting to look for what I would call sort of third-party validation or context, which is not self-distributing it and constantly trying to put it on our Facebook page, like, oh, go and see it, or wherever. But they've hooked us up with a YouTube channel called Kings of Horror that carries all kinds of micro-budget horror. And so now there's sort of this context that we can put around this film that creates, ideally, a little bit of validation, maybe for people that don't know us.
Like influencer marketing.
Right.
And
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
to speak.
right, so we're not just, you know what I mean, trying to create it from ground zero, from scratch. And I feel like right now, with the landscape that we've been looking at, that is what you're looking at as a micro-budget filmmaker in a Fox Searchlight scenario. That I'm sure is completely different. But yeah, the marketing part will lay on you heavily, and Chad, I think, is totally right when he says it comes down to essentially units. You have to go out and get the eyeballs, and you're just praying to reach a tipping point, right? Who knows what that tipping point is right now? I don't know. So.
And it does seem like Netflix is that holy grail, and there's not much competition to such a quiet company. But that also means that there's a market there for challenging Netflix at some point. And so I'm not too savvy with all the streaming services out there, but for something that could help independent filmmakers, maybe something we'll organize over the years where it will challenge Netflix to reconsider how they do their process. And then I know for Growing Cities, we were trying to get onto Netflix, and it was something where it is like we had it on Netflix, but you had to put it in your queue to then get it to streaming, and we were more so doing this PBS campaign, so we were kind of tired by that point to really achieve the Netflix goal, and so the Netflix went by the wayside, but it is something with distribution and gaining that audience and building an audience as you move, so that you can show what you've done, or you can have that support to say, okay, we would, if they support you, then more people can support you. But yeah, I would think that there would be some service that pops up in the next couple of years that would challenge Netflix a little bit more.
Can I just say something? I'm sorry, I know I'm not like up there on the high tiers or whatever, but I was actually just having this conversation the other day. Netflix what's happening is like Disney's starting to challenge, so Disney's pulling all their movies off Netflix. Everybody's starting to pull their movies off of Netflix and forming their own individual channels. So Netflix, unfortunately, won't be like the hub of everything anymore. Now everybody's pulling away, so there'll be limited movie exposure on Netflix eventually.
I've already kind of noticed that, honestly, in their content. It's just not, it's not as like vast as it used to be, in my opinion. But
The reason we were able to get on Netflix is because it happened right after Starz pulled their entire library off of Netflix. Do you guys remember there was a time when you could watch Netflix and literally almost any movie that you could think of would show up on it. And a lot of that was due to the Starz library. And then, of course, everyone realized, holy crap, there's money in this digital streaming. The Starz was like, we're not going to renew that license. And Netflix was like, oh, we need a bunch of content. So we got packaged in through an aggregated company called Gravitas. That's how we ended up hooking it.
Just kind of as a related question, since I think we're getting to that point, YouTube Red and Facebook Video, would follow that, how viable would that be?
They just bought a bunch of content for way too much money at AFM, so.
Facebook specifically, right?
Yeah.
And that's why Netflix is making so much of their original stuff. Like, I'm sure you guys saw that the Coen Brothers film, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, right? That they just shot in Western Nebraska. That is a Netflix original. That's where it will show. The Coen Brothers. You're like, no shit, we can't get it. Forget it.
And they brought $1 million to western end of the state.
Yeah.
On a side note on the Netflix stuff, when I talked to some filmmakers who've been approached by Netflix that have turned around and says, no, I don't want to do that, I kind of want to keep my story the way it is. And then as soon as they turn on that Netflix deal, which means that you'll never be on Netflix, they can't get any distributors to even have a conversation with them at that point anymore too. So it's, you know, Netflix has a little bit too much power at this point in the distribution networks.
I honestly just got lucky with mine because I didn't have to. I didn't have to go through Netflix or any of that stuff. Like I just went straight to Fox. Well, Fox Searchlight picked it up, and I got completely lucky with mine.
But you have a good story.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I mean-
but I have a good story, and yeah, it's a well-written screenplay. So like, what you guys have gone through, like what I'm hearing right now, is like I haven't had to go through that. Honestly, like I've went through Fox Searchlight and got my distribution through there, but like I haven't had to fight like I know David, you know, like what he went through with Amazon Prime and some, you know, and with Cap and all that, and I just never, I haven't had to fight through that, like, yeah, I just got lucky. Yeah.
Ask a question that you made it sound like it got optioned for a little bit and kind of got shelved. Was it the
Yeah.
script that got optioned or the finished production?
The script got optioned and then it got shelved. And so like, and then I was gonna drop it completely and then Fox Searchlight picked it up.
As
So-
a script and
Yeah, the script itself. So.
David, I have leading into your experience, how much do you feel you actually need to be in meetings in LA or New York? Because I know you kind of had a 6 degree of separation with Lonnie, kind of pointed you in the right direction to the right Husker, Cali, Nebraska connection.
Yeah, so Lonnie Semstock had recommended, I had met him at OFF actually. Well, I had met him once before and then we talked at OFF and I said, you know, what can I do with the film? He said, well, Circus Rhodes is a sales agent. And so what a sales agent does, they go out and sell your film to distributors and they get a cut of every sale going forward. So they represented us. When he contacted them, he recommended our film to them. And so then I followed up with them and then they liked the film, they accepted it. But the one thing about them was, and this is what normally happens unless you have named talent, is they wanted 10% up front. So 10% of $50,000. So basically $5,000 up front. And so we would get that money back if we made over $50,000 because they would not charge it. It would have already been charged up front. So what we did is instead they had an arm called Media Circus. And so that was their promotional arm. And so I just cut a deal with them and said, I'm not going to pay that. But we do need the promotional side, so we'll put that same money into promoting the film, and you can throw out that 10%, and they agreed to that. And so then that's where we started with them, and they got us 2 offers. Summerhill, which is Tomcat, too, basically the same company, gave us the first offer, and it was okay. He was super nice. We thought maybe there was a possibility there, and then Monarch Home Entertainment was the second offer. And then Monarch, I just didn't think he really wanted us, even though that was the better brand of the two. That one probably could possibly make us money. But we just decided to wait, and we just kept going. We went back to festivals. So then at that point, we were done with Circus Rhodes. So I just said, we're gonna go to festivals for a while and see what happens, and see if we can build up the brand a little bit. And in the process of that, we'll come back to you when we build up the brand, and maybe you can go back and sell again. They were totally good with that. Well, I started doing the festival run, and then I would be traveling. So that's where the expense comes in, is I would start going to these bigger festivals. So I went to Action On, which had supposed to have a film market, and there was no film market there. And because it was kind of, not that Action On's not a good festival, it's just there was a first year in Vegas, and the Palms was where it was at. Problem was the fight was the following week, and so everybody was coming in and buying up, even though they had a signed contract with the Palms. The bar and stuff got bought up for like the week for like maybe $10 million. And so any contract Action On had just went out the door, basically. They don't care. They're like, sue us, we don't care. And so basically they just kind of closed down the festival to the point where it's just like this small festival. They didn't have really a film market. But there was a guy who showed up there from New York City by the name of Princeton Holt. And we were standing around, and he came up, he's like, where's the film market? And I said, I don't know, man, but are you a distributor? And he's like, yeah. So I said, you know, I don't know the circumstances, I'm not sure what's happening, but we just started talking. I told him our deal with Circus Roads, and he's like, okay, let's have a drink. And I said, that sounds great. So we went over, started having a few cocktails, and then he only buys short films. So I said, I've got a lot of short films. And so he said, why don't you send them to me? And I said, okay. So he said, and I said, I got a feature too. We just kind of hit it off. It was a good conversation. And he said, then I'll recommend somebody to you for them, because they treat their filmmakers the best in the industry. So he recommended Indie Rights to me. And so he said, tell them that I sent you to them. And I said, okay. So then I sent in my films. He picked up, Hughes Pictures picked up Shakespeare Noodles. They sell international TV rights is what they do. That's their money. Because they'll package it with 2 other films, and they'll sell an hour of film overseas on TV. So that's where I sold that I signed a deal with them. I didn't sell it. Right? I still get my percentage. And then we contacted Indie Rights. She loved the film. Said, okay, let's do a deal. Well, then she didn't get back to me right away. You know, typical LA, like everything's good and it's all golden. And then I'm like, oh man, what's going to happen here? You know, and I kept thinking like, this is done. This is done. So what I did is I went back to Glenn, and I had a relationship with him because I had recommended other films to Circus Roads at that point. And so I said to Glenn, I said, well, Indie Rights is interested in the film. I just don't know how to follow through with it. And he said, well, let me just see what she says. And so then she called me basically the next day. And so they kind of just handed that off to me. They didn't really, so in a weird way, yeah, Lonnie had it, and I want to give Lonnie credit for
Oh yeah, I just thought that was an awesome
opening the
story,
story, yeah, opening the door for me to understand it more. And then, which I gave him credit, and I totally gave him credit for, not many people were willing to do that. And then just going out, getting myself out there, being at the right place at the right time. And then trying to network and then following up and making sure things just get pushed through. So that's kind of what we did. So then we signed a deal with Indie Rights, and then we followed through with Media Circus, did the last of our promotional arm that they owed us, and so then now that's where we're at. So,
I think that's nice anecdotal evidence that this is an industry of relationships.
yeah.
It is.
And you know, if I had had name talent, that would be a lot easier to have relationships, right? I mean, there are things that can give you, like, you know, can increase your odds a lot and make money. And then, you know, back to Netflix too, is like she said the first thing out of her mouth, like they're gonna want all the rights. Is when we asked Indie Rights, they're gonna want all the rights. They're not gonna pay you squat. They'll maybe pay. They're not paying anything right now. So she said sometimes they'll pay $5,000–$10,000 for these films. And the filmmakers want to be on Netflix, right? Because it is the behemoth, right? And you can say I'm on Netflix. Problem is you don't ever make any money. You have your film on Netflix, and they get, you know, maybe you can leverage that, maybe. But we just didn't want. We wanted to try to somehow make back some of the money or time we put in somehow. So it's not like 10 cents an hour. It's like $1 an hour for the last 2 years. And so kind of that's basically what it came down to. But I do think that Netflix is a good option if you have. They are buying still. It's just not as much because they're doing all their own content. And if they do buy, it's usually a 2-year deal now, and they pay you in quarters. So like if they offered you $200,000, they'll pay you $50,000 per quarter. You won't even see your money up front anymore. So it's like this weird,
Even in 2010.
Is that how they did too?
They
Okay,
did.
really?
They just paid in quarters, and
Yeah.
plus it was a 3-year deal.
Okay, wow, that's great.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, they flew in, Jared Leto to meet with me. And that was I was kind of hoping on him. He was gonna be my big name talent, but he's doing the Joker Harley Quinn remake or whatever now, so. Yeah, and so he backed out of it. So I've got Jason Ritter right now and Amanda Detner, who was in Final Destination. But it took me almost, I don't know, how long do you think? Like 9 months. Yeah. Like 9 months to land them on that, so. It gave me a $30 million budget. So we'll start filming in March, or no, that's a different movie. August of next year. We start filming in Denver, and then part of it's in Omaha. But part of it in Omaha that I really had to fight for is the tax incentives here like, it's taken me a lot to like even film part of it in Omaha right now. Because the tax incentives here suck. And like, that's why I was so happy about the Coen Brothers movie in the project, is because they kind of opened the door a little bit for that. And so I'm hoping to kind of open that door a little bit more to keep going on with Fox Searchlight. So.
Can I ask you if the our existing tiny incentives, the low med funds, I know Springfield and I think Ralston would be the closest cities that actually offer that. Is that even a drop in the bucket for a major studio?
No.
I didn't think so, but I thought I'd ask.
It's not. Really, all they offer right now is like kind of off the restaurant tax, like they're giving some money off of, and the hotel tax and whatnot. They'll give you a little bit off that. But.
And I think the entire program maybe has $500,000 total.
Right.
A studio could eat
Right.
that up and not leave anything for anyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Is the concern when they were pitching that.
Right. They, like with the $30 million budget now, I'm not too like super worried about it now because at least I got them to come here. But there's still, it still needs more improvement. Yeah, and I don't know like the right way to go about it.
I mean, there's debate nationally about whether Georgia's spending too much taxpayer money to bring all that in. I mean, it's not an easy answer by far.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just been a fight from the beginning, and I almost lost the project. Well, I probably did lose the project with HBO because of the tax incentives here, so.
Why do you think that that's like an issue, I guess? Like, not the tax incentives, like they aren't real, because I'm sure they are. But just why is it so difficult for projects like this? Because it seems like Omaha has a really, really good community, like a creator community, not just in film, but in everywhere. And you would think with as much talent as Omaha is trying to pull into the city itself, that it would offer more tax incentives. Like, what's the root cause of that? Because that would seem to me that would be the number one thing that would turn away anyone from doing a project here.
With the cynical answer or the?
I want the real. I want the real. Yeah, the cynical answer, the real one.
That's the $1 million question, I think.
In my experience, the legislature will not spend any money that's not budgeted for somewhere.
Just it's red state.
Oh no, but Georgia's a red state, and Louisiana's a red state.
Dana has an insight.
Yeah.
There are no tax incentives here, and the only way to pass them is through the state. And the state's only concerned with farmers and ranchers.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's not really the metropolitan communities in
Right.
Omaha and Lincoln that has any pull.
So it's just
all
like
the coffers.
it's just like a local culture thing. Okay, I understand.
But the offset to tax incentives, which we've done several times, is really because everybody in here that makes movies in here knows and gets offsets from their friends and their neighbors and the businesses that they know, and they get deductions that are quantifiable and offsets to a budget. So even though I may be doing a $3 million or $7 million film, I'll go and go, yeah, I want to shoot in Nebraska. There are no tax incentives, and they go, well, that ain't going to happen. And then I go, but I'm going to save about $2 million because of what I know and who I know and why I know it. And the lodging's cheaper, and the meals are cheaper, and the taxes are cheaper. So then you just have to fight back.
Yeah.
It would be great if everyone put that kind of info on a website that was written well and spelled out and just kind of linked to that from the internet.
Well,
that'd be a cool idea.
I don't know how to use a computer.
Okay. Well, and thank you for that perspective though, because that's really important to know. I mean, just like when you're doing any kind of marketing for whatever short film you're about to do, I mean, you have to know your audience. You have to know like what area you're going to, like who are you pitching it to, basically. If you're coming to Nebraska and you're saying you want to shoot a film and you're going to help farmers out while doing it, or save them X amount of cost on this, or bring them this amount of tourism, of course they're going to throw something at you. But if you went to like New York, or if you went to like a different state, you're going to have to know the process seems like it would be the same. You're just going to be dealing with a different crowd.
Look, Georgia's getting a lot of production, and right, they're winning. Louisiana's winning. They cannot deny that they're doing well. Nebraska did something. Any state did something. Iowa's a fiasco and a tragedy of all kinds. They're winning here. Look, if anybody says, like from a tax incentive standpoint, it's who we know and how we can deduct the budget from because of those relationships. Our community is still really open to filmmaking. All the others aren't. They're like, there's the cash. But if you also go, hey, but my money that is supporting this film is from Nebraskans, then that's also a way to contribute. You're not, look, all the money that everybody spent here is from Nebraska. Right.
Well, we got to do better than South Carolina, because even South Carolina is trying to expand their film industry. So yeah.
Well,
that's where I got my degree.
My mother-in-law lives
USC,
there.
yeah.
Well, and it's good that there is an overall answer to that, I guess, to that root problem, or there's like maybe not an answer, but like a unique way to approach it in the future if you're planning on having, mass distribution or whatever path you want to go down. It's good that there's kind of like a roadmap or like a stencil there, I guess, so to speak. So.
But Danny, you just went overseas. Like, how does that come into play?
International was my next question.
Yeah, like.
Look,
Does this still come into play a
the
little
content
bit?
that you're creating has its own, like, if it's built for an international audience, like the films that you do, the horror films and the other films, if it resonates outside of U.S., out of Nebraska, then it's easier. Just like growing cities. I mean, they went to every fucking major city in America and explored the urban agricultural gardens of their time. And yeah, it was hard, but they automatically had and it wasn't global, except for the side that we're organic gardening and we're exploring the world of good food. Like every community in the world loves good food. So I think it's really your content that will drive the international focus of the promise that you have for those kinds of sales, right, from a distributor. And that's just an upside. So it's an advantage. Your content will define. Like I've got one picture that no one's going to want to see because it's just Nebraska. You can't get it financed.
Like having a universal story. If your story has a universal quality to it, like many of the things you do, anything that happened in one of those people can happen anywhere in the world. One of the things, and I'm just going to throw this out as I started talking, people say, we made this movie for this little teeny bit of money. We made this movie and it only cost us $5. We're going to win the, whatever that golden rate, under $7,000 for it. We're going to win this because we only spent $500 and we made 3.5 hours of content. And that makes it hard, I think, then to like do what you're doing. That devalues your stuff. We made $1 an hour over a penny an hour. You didn't make your movie for free. Your script isn't free. The thing that the person wrote for you and gave to you isn't free. It has a market value. And if you say, this is what it costs, even if there's no money, then your movie's worth more.
Yeah, production value.
So
My time's worth
if
money.
your movie's worth on IMDb $0 to $5,000, or if your movie is worth $1.5 million, that's my question. If I estimate my budget, which I get to put on there myself, I was told that by someone, anyone can put anything on IMDb. If I value it for what I would have paid for it if I had money and could pay my friends what they're really worth, because people's work in Nebraska is worth money, is that better? I don't mean overvalue it, but if we say what it is that going to be better for everybody? This is just rhetorical, theoretical stuff. Isn't that better if we say this product is worth this much because this is what it costs to have a DP and a costumer and PAs and water bottles and pick everything up, and we did that. Whether Susie's grandma paid for it or somebody wrote a check.
I think that's a double-edged sword, because some of the earlier stuff that I did, there's no way I'd say I spent a lot of money on some of that stuff. But now, with some of the stuff I'm doing, I'm adding my editing time, my production time, everything, so production value goes up quite a bit. Like I said, that some of that early stuff I did, you know, I'd rather tell somebody I did it for free, so that's why it looks so bad.
Why? Could you not have, I mean, if you did that, do you think that no one would have paid you to do that job? At the skill level you were at that time?
No.
No one would have paid you?
Hell no.
Okay.
Anything is only as valuable as if somebody will pay for it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
that's as.
But if I'm gonna go and work on a set, actually, that's my time is my money, that's
What's your head in?
my payment.
Well, I
So-
don't tell anybody.
No, I agree. It's a conversation that's happened, you know, many times throughout the last decade between local film.
Craft art.
There, I remember a time where. Yeah,
Business.
I remember a moment at some point where people were talking about creating a local rate sheet so that people could, you know, budget their film for using local talent and local crews, and I was just like, but that's just weird, because we're just circling the same money around, and then no one's really making any money. You haven't created any value there, and for the most part, most people wouldn't do anything then if I knew I had to pay everybody that was going to be on my crew or in my cast. We couldn't come up with that cash. There's absolutely no way we could do it. Now, creating that value it kind of depends on the audience that you're talking to. If I'm here with a bunch of other filmmakers and we want to talk about what I really spent on my movie, that's going to be a different number than I might tell, you know, a film festival or a distributor or something of that nature. I might, actually sort of start adding up some of that time and come up with a larger budget. But that how much that we theoretically would have spent has no bearing whatsoever on what a distributor is going to pay.
Right.
Anybody's going to
The
pay.
bottom line, I think, is the money shows, except for the disaster artist. I mean, if you search around,
There's
I'm sorry.
There's a lot of money in the room.
that's the meta aspect of that. But other than that, I would say that the money does show, and you can't really fake it.
Yeah.
I mean, people try, we try, and I mean, you know. So putting a number, in terms of distribution, putting a higher number to how much that you theoretically spent, even though maybe people didn't actually make that money, does not necessarily push your work to any higher level. Because all they have to do is just look at the screen and know at what skill level you were working on, which I'm sure is why you look back at your early work and go, just made up a figure. I feel the
Which we
same
all
way.
do, yeah.
Right.
It's like, oh God.
Oh my
I
God.
did that, oh Jesus.
Yeah.
It also can be part of the aesthetic, because with like John Cassavetes, producing an independent film and not, taking it out of credit and going its own path.
Right.
But then it does produce that aesthetic of like, is this like a high production quality, but is it about that at a certain point too? So.
That's like beyond the Holy Grail, which is that your style would be so awesome that it does not matter how much money you have.
Right.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I've
That's like
got a
John
pointed
Waters.
question for Mark. Of the people in this room, I don't know how much you throw out screeners or trailers, how that's changed now that it's just a Vimeo password protected link. You were like one of the few Nebraska people that I know, and I'm not kissing butt, but you have like fans in Austin, Texas or whatever that know all of your movies. Like there's Barstool Cowboy fans nationally. Did you help do that, or how did that happen?
No.
If we're our own best advocate, I'm just asking. Like, okay, they got a copy of your DVD somehow.
Yeah, I did receive, it's a strange movie. People have sent me emails about that from all over the place. I'm not saying hundreds of emails.
Right.
But, you know, over the years, I've received personal messages and I don't really know why. Or how they saw it, or why they wanted to see it, you know.
Right. Because that's on Prime streaming?
It is now, yeah.
It is now,
It was like Netflix DVD.
Right.
That was the big thing that it did. And it had a weird thing where there was like a Variety article in 2009 where it was like, X-Men, Wolverine will be released on Tuesday. You know, like all the Tuesday DVD releases like supposed to be. And there was this list, and I always just remember X-Men, Wolverine, and then like mine was like right below it. And it didn't make any sense. And like the next day, Netflix ordered like 500 more DVDs, something like that, because it got that old queue thing where it's like in queue, you know. So I got a lot of weird, cheap views.
Okay. I thought you had a campaign that we're strategically sending out to every state.
I mean, I did a lot of that. I did send out a lot. I was a lot more probably possessed than I used to, or that I am now, I should say. So I was a lot more active.
Sure.
I suppose. So it may have had some influence on it too. I don't know. I kind of don't. I just don't have the energy for it, you know, like I used to. So, yeah.
Had a good time.
Right.
You've almost melted off that chair. You were so
And that kind of leads me to international. I mean, we touched a little bit on it 5 or 8 years ago. That was the holy grail of if you can get an international deal, the audiences are eating it up. Just with the language barrier, so you gotta have subtitles. I've read that's kind of tanked as all the other, I mean, democratization of gear and talent and information. Every country is making their own movies, but how much would you guys say? I know you've had a little bit of international success, and when it comes to innovative platforms like Airplane, VOD, and all these new, we've got so many people trapped in front of screens where a lot of those only give you access to certain programming. How much have you guys tapped into that with your distribution?
I guess I can only really speak to the history of our first two features. And with Wake the Witch in 2009, at that time, our distributor we had 2 different distributors, one for the US and then one for international. And so our international distribution was like England,
Pretty much every
Australia.
English-speaking country.
Yeah, and then it got pirated, and you could watch it in Afghanistan on DVD. But for our second feature, our distributor was like, they wanted all the rights right away, and that was complicated. So we ended up going with Tomcat, and ended up, I think, in Seoul and somewhere in other parts of South Korea, and I don't know. Our Tomcat experience wasn't that great.
Yeah, no, I know, yeah.
But so for a Corruptor, I have also heard that, yeah, the foreign stuff is like, I don't know. That's what I got for that.
So yeah, back in 2009 or 10, actually, probably when the foreign stuff happened for Wake the Witch, we did pretty well. I mean, Australia money was pretty decent. I will, and it was still by unit, but you know the movie did all right in those English-speaking countries. Yeah, we didn't see a dime from blood rights, not a dime from the foreign.
But the distributor that we've been talking to recently has connections to a distributor who handles nothing but low budget features for global. And so hopefully we will have a chance to chat with them and then see what the lay of the land is like there.
Go International is a pain in the ass, by the way. If you've never had to make M&E tracks, basically strip out your dialogue so that they can.
Creating the scripts for it.
I have it
We ended up doing all of that work
awful.
ourselves, just to save ourselves the money. People will do it for you, of course, or your distributor will do it for you if you pay them upfront or whatever. But yeah, it is hard.
Just make it fun.
There you go.
And then you have the subtitles.
But with that, Tim, did you have to make changes to your project to make it more
To
internationally
make it
clean?
international?
Not a lot. Yeah, I had to cut like, because it was supposed to be a 8-hour mini series, and so I had to cut like 6 hours out of the script, which made it a little bit difficult. But I didn't have to make many changes to make it that much different.
Did they give you like guidelines? You know what I mean?
As far as
for some kind of international release. I'm thinking not English speaking countries.
oh, I
You know, like,
don't
they don't
really
like
have
this.
to. I haven't really had to worry about that much.
Maybe that'll happen.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah.
China
Yeah.
kind of one of those really restrictive places? They want you to cut a lot of stuff normally in China.
It's pretty. My script is very raw. So they're probably going to want something, I would assume, at some point.
With a name like Cocaine Grapes, I thought it was a
Yeah.
family film. so-
Picked up by Disney.
Yeah.
Rated G for graceful.
Right. Grace was my daughter's name, who I lost. She passed away, and so that's kind of where the Grace comes from. And then the cocaine is obviously it's a mafia, soprano type based movies.
Cocaine is cocaine.
Did you have anything for international?
Oh, I just didn't know if you sold international rights or, okay, yeah. So that, yeah, that's where we kind of, one thing any rights was good about, they take it all, which is good. Now, Circus Roads, when they sell, they don't even, they'll recommend international distributor, but they will not, they don't want any of it. They don't even want a percentage of it or anything, just hand it off to, because they don't want to deal with it, because they just, it's so corrupt on some levels, and they're dealing with a lot, they're dealing with the big distributors, and they just never see any money back, so for them, it's kind of worthless. But indie rights will try, they sold 15 films, unfortunately ours was not one of them, to China. But because of some ours, you know, because of the torture scenes and stuff, you know, which is not extreme torture, but it, you know, there's some violence in it, that it wasn't selected. That was the biggest part of it. It's like, how do you cut that completely out? Oh, film, it's pretty hard to do that. Because it's a pretty big, you know, there's a few sections there, you know, and Garrett looks tortured the whole movie, so that helps. But yeah, so we didn't sell there, but you know, you just don't know. They'll take it to Con now and try to sell it from there. And then Hughes Pictures, it's strictly TV, so I have no idea, and I don't know for until next quarter whether I'm doing anything or selling anything on that side. I do know that there's money to be made on the international side, just having the right relationships.
I think you got, the money comes in pre-sales instead of after the film's done. You gotta sell a piece, distribution rights before you make the film as part of your money, and then go to the banks with that.
Right, but that's where you have that talent attached.
Can you talk about capital a little bit? Well, you just won Best Director, and let's talk about that.
Oh, yeah, that's not distribution though, so that's something that, yeah, I appreciate it, but yeah.
The growing cities have any?
Yeah, it went to many international film festivals, and so it was primarily going to a bunch of, doing the film festival circuit, and then going from there into PBS. And so yeah, went to Russia and Australia, and I think from that film festival circuit, there was a lot of help in terms of understanding the international market, but I don't know how all the rights broke down and all that. But yeah, I mean, to go somewhere like Russia where there's a little bit more censorship, and to be promoted there, pretty amazing.
The other thing is Amazon Prime has opened up a bunch of countries. So like Japan, UK, Sweden, Germany, Australia, all those countries are all open to Prime now, so that gives a lot more opportunities. And so indie rights is like just sitting back and seeing what's going to happen. They have no idea yet. Yeah, you haven't seen much. So,
But it's just,
Mostly from the US.
most ones from you, yeah.
I'll go a little bit from Germany.
Okay.
Seems to be
Did
the
you
best
end up
of
doing
all.
subtitles for it with German?
Well, no.
They said that you almost, that was the
I
biggest.
just did the English
Japanese
one.
and German would be the ones.
Okay.
They told me.
And then maybe that's part of the reason why.
Yeah, because they'll turn it on,
Yeah.
and only a percentage
Yeah,
speaks
yeah,
English,
yeah,
and
yeah.
same with Japanese, only 25% of the Japanese speak English, considered fluently, and so you have to really, you're gonna have to have a Japanese subtitles.
that could be the way to get around that overseas corruption.
Agreed. Yeah.
Because then you have, yeah.
It's a direct link, and then you can
Exactly.
add, my thing is like, I'm planning on, once we do the Japanese side, I'm planning on advertising in those countries.
That's
So-
nice.
So I'm like trying to figure out how to advertise through Twitter's one of their strength in Japan, right? That's their biggest dominant social media, so from Twitter, and I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna play that. I just wanna see what will happen. I'm just doing,
Right.
I'm doing A/B testing right now with all the social media, trying to drive traffic, and then I see what works and what doesn't, so.
Dang. That was where I was headed with the next question. Is how much do you guys do your own SEO or SEM if you don't have a studio telling you what to do? And kind of branching off from that, when Vimeo on Demand came out, it seemed like the holy grail, that you get 90% of when people hit buy, but I think they've even kind of scaled back their expectations. Is there a way you would consider, once you're done with traditional means, to literally put it on your website and anyone that finds you can give you that $10 click? I just made up a number.
Man, I mean, that just kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Without context, which means without a brand name actor or director that people would recognize, that just doesn't seem like a plan to me. I guess I don't want to work that hard, kind of like Mike. I just don't have that much energy. Man.
I mean, you know, social media is great and all, but I mean, how often does a post that you make or your production company make or the movies account make reach outside of that friend group that you have? I mean, how often does it make its way out? How many people that you send something to are so excited that they send it to people you don't already know?
I'm almost drifting into like Google AdWords that you search urban legends, Midwest America, that they would find Wake the Witch.
Right.
Are you willing to put down $5 a month to try and find those people?
We've looked at doing that, but ultimately, when we've done kind of our, you know what I mean, financial risk assessment,
Yeah.
which our finances are like this much, so just keep that in mind. It's not like we're, so much money. We've just been like, we're not ready to spend that money for something I don't think is gonna give us a return. But on a case like what you're talking about, that is fascinating. And I think it's super cool that that's something you're willing to do. I would love to do
I'm just
more.
gonna
That
experiment.
story.
Yeah.
Right.
Telling that story when you're done with your experiment, you're coming back.
Right, yeah, exactly,
Talking
yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I definitely see click-throughs on Instagram. And I'm just running the trailer only, so, I mean, it's working. And it's, the thing about Amazon is, once you have enough traffic internationally, or even nationally, then they'll start popping you up in recommendations. So what I'm doing is I'm picking certain cities, like Blackluck does really well, New York, New Jersey, Chicago. It's really a thug film, mafia-based, and so that's where it's the strongest. And so that's where my ads do the best, and so then I've targeted them, and then, so I kind of figured out, though, I'll get click-throughs on that, and so, you know, I think we're ranking #2 right now on all of Indie Rights films for action. So I have no idea what that'll, what kind of money will come out of
Right,
that.
that'll be
right?
interesting.
Yeah, But
return on investment.
But
Right?
yeah, it's like, you know, with Prime, I have no idea, but I do know Prime bonuses too. It's like there's a certain percentage of the highest, most successful film get bonused from Amazon Prime. They write you a check for, like, the top 50 films get paid so much money. So, you know, there's things like that that are occurring that Prime, and I think Prime is gonna be the winner, and I know it's like, everybody could be on it, but why they're gonna win is because they're gonna have everything on it.
They'll be
And
like
they're gonna take
Netflix
over
early
Netflix,
days.
right, because why wouldn't you go to Prime? For me, it's like, why wouldn't I, if I wanna see a new movie that just came out, you know, it's just like, Wind River.
Yeah.
Boom, I can just go to Prime right now and pay my $3.99. With Netflix, I don't even have that option, right? And that's why they're gonna win. Because once you provide that extra option, you're gonna do what Netflix is doing. You're gonna stream everything, right? You're gonna have it free, but then you're gonna have those paid options. And why Netflix doesn't do that? Probably because they're buying all their server space from Amazon. Is probably why they're not doing it. But Amazon has all that server space, and so they're willing to just take all those risks, have all those movies constantly being loaded out, and it's unlimited, right? And so for us, for me at home, like, why would I even go? Now I still don't go to Netflix because the content they create. Otherwise, I wouldn't go to Netflix at all anymore. So.
Here's a question. Can you just give us a ballpark on how much you're spending for those ads?
When I first started, I spent like $100, and it was $10 a day for. I think it ended up being click-throughs, ended up being like 45 cents. Now, you would think I'm not really within streaming. You're not going to make that money back. But if you drive that many people based on that money, you drive that many people all across the country watching your film, their algorithm's watching that, right? They're constantly like, oh, evaluate, boom, 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 boom. So, you know, I'm giving it all away.
And that
Right?
algorithm.
Anything you want, I'm giving it to you.
That algorithm is a big deal. I mean, if you start, if your movie starts to get more reviews, good or bad, it don't matter. I mean, more reviews it gets, you know, that algorithm takes that into account.
Pushes it up.
Yeah, it just keeps pushing it up, keeps pushing it up. And, you know, you're totally right. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to Amazon and Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
But, you know, from a perception standpoint.
Right, agreed.
They're not.
My thing is like, I just want to
Yeah,
make money.
You want the money.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
want to make money.
Yeah.
So I can keep making films.
I do feel like at some point that perception does matter, because what it comes down to is having access to more resources.
Right. Agreed.
Everybody, you know, likes to, you know, even if you're not going to be paying much for you know a quality actor to go, okay, well, you've got stuff on Netflix, this is going to be a quality project. It just opens that door a little bit wider for you, so that content or that those resources become maybe the tiniest bit easier to pull together. So.
I've actually, I know I'm kind of new to this group here, but I keep hearing people say, you know, that they won't pick you up unless you're a big name, but what about making yourself that big name, which is kind of where I started attacking my production company from. In a year and a half, I have over 10,000 people following me on Facebook. Recently, I started having people call me to do things for them. You know, I mean, I'm in the middle of making my own studio in my house, but I'm already charging $30 an hour, and this has really only been going for a year and a half, which is kind of shocking to me. But now we're being picked up by other people. I'm being offered ads for magazines. I'm going to be in Omaha magazine coming up in February. There are several other magazines. I'm also filming this Sunday for something that they are hoping to put on television for a TV spot, because now HanaCon is a thing, and so we're being featured there. I'm also getting photo shoots, just you name it, radio spots, I don't know. It's just all coming out of nowhere. But it's because instead of, you know, trying to put myself on these things, and I'm trying to just make myself the name and be that name and be that. I mean, I've even had people call me hiring to make them logos. Like, not really my thing, but if you're going to pay the $30 an hour, okay, you know, I'll totally do it for you. But I think instead of trying to fit in with the big name, you should be the big name. And it's been working for me. I mean, a year and a half, actually, I think not even a year into it, I got a call from Stick Figure Productions, which does shows for HBO, and they do many other major networks. they've been watching all of my stuff, and at this point, they're saying, we're hoping within a year to give you a TV show. And I mean, it's
Why are you not up here sitting?
Exactly. I was like, what is your brand? Yeah. In case somebody wants to check it
and
out.
literally all I mean, I guess it's not, I mean, I think about it constantly. I'm buried alive paranormal productions. You know, that's what I do. You know, and so, I mean, I made the first episode, like episode 1, a year and a half ago. And mind you, it takes me a long time because I'm the editor, the producer,
Right.
the director, the cinematographer, the sound designer. I mean, I do everything. I have a crew, but my crew is 4 people, and only one of them kind of knows stuff. But the reason we have a crew is because we go out to, you know, I mean, paranormal is huge right now. It's like the biggest thing. And so we take a guest with us, and we go out to do these investigations and put episodes together. I was recently in South Carolina, went to an abandoned assailant asylum for the first time, which went live. Our first live video, we had 143 people watching. The first time we ever went live. And I'm like, that's so awesome. And it keeps growing and growing and growing every day. I mean, for a while there, I was getting over 100 friend requests a day on my regular page. And it just, it's insane. And I mean, we haven't really done anything but promote ourselves. You know, obviously the first few episodes and the first, like those little mini videos and promotional videos and stuff that I'm making all the time, I mean, nobody's paying for that, but the payment is coming because of that. So now, you know, I mean, it's crazy. We have people who call us, I mean, India right now thinks we're the greatest thing on the planet. I don't really understand that, but we have fans all over the United States, all over the world, you know. It's just, and it's because I've decided when I want people to think editor, director, production company, I want them to think me, not somebody else, not Hollywood, not, I want them to think us.
I think that's kind of like where everything's going, like building your brand and people will come to it. You know, you just got to, you got to put the effort in. It's a lot of work.
You're obviously passionate about it, and
beyond.
a little bit of genre luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you
Well,
put
I
in the
mean,
time.
it's funny because I've always been into paranormal and horror, and that's always been my thing, you know. And so actually he's my boss in real life, I call it. But he's like obsessed with paranormal, and I'm obsessed with film, and it just kind of happened. It wasn't even, we weren't even really trying. It just sort of happened, and so. You know, he's learning. I'm actually giving his first lessons in green screening, which is hilarious, but.
You kind of found your niche, right? Right.
Yeah, and I
so
think
that,
that's.
they had people say like, you know, the riches are in the niches, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the money's made, you know. And so, you know, find certain things that fit, like documentaries that, you know, like yours, organic is a niche, right? And so, like, you know, it fits a niche, and people, and you're passionate about it. But that's the other side
But
of it too.
it's funny though, because people know. I mean, I do get a lot of calls for horror and paranormal and stuff like that. But I also get calls for, can you make a promotional video for my band? Can you make me a logo for my clothing company? And I'm like, okay, I mean, sure.
Yeah,
I don't enjoy it as much as the other thing, but I'm like, if you're gonna pay me, I'm all good, I'll do it.
Have you looked into that sort of, that Patreon model, the you know, being able to monetize that, the sort of the fandom that you are
Yeah,
starting to accumulate?
see, that's the thing that I'm starting to learn how to do now, is how to bring money into it, and it's coming, you know, I mean, I'm not the best at it, but, you know, I'm working on it, I'm learning, that's why I'm here, you know, because I want to hear, how do you make money off of this? And I think Amazon Prime is definitely for us to go. I mean, I think our videos on Facebook alone, you know, we have some half-hour episodes, but 30,000, 40,000 people are viewing this stuff, you know. I put a video up the next day, it has 1,000 views within a day and a half, 2 days.
Within a year or two, you might be in the best position of all of us. Yeah. Only because Facebook is coming into that arena. And it makes a transition right over where you're getting paid for all your views, basically, at some point.
Well, that's what we're hoping. I mean, we're really hoping for that. Like, I really,
that's
you know,
coming.
and the thing is YouTube is so difficult, and now they've changed their thing, because we have 500 subscribers on YouTube. We're making money on YouTube, but now YouTube is like, we're not gonna pay you until you have a minimal of 10,000 views. But they also make it extremely difficult to promote YouTube. So we started with episode 3, only putting on, you want to watch it, you got to go to YouTube. So obviously our views dropped because people don't want to work for anything. They literally just want it right there in their face, they watch it, we're okay.
Right.
You have to make it so easy for people to just be so lazy And it's like really, it's like 5 seconds more and you can watch it. They won't do it.
Yeah.
They're too lazy, and that's sad.
Kickstarter just started something like that.
I was just gonna say, they have their own Patreon model.
Yep.
Really? I haven't seen
Announced yesterday.
Drip or
That's-
something like that?
Drip.
Really? That's good. But yeah, it's kind of unlimited.
Yeah, that could be huge, knowing the infrastructure they already have in place for beg.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what level of artist I'm gonna say, I admire you that much, I'm gonna give you $5 a month till the end of time, just to keep your thing going. I'm trying to figure out, being a supporter of the arts, that's a tough nut to crack, versus.
I don't think it's a subscription service. I think it's, you do the one episode and then you beg for the money to get the next episode or something like
Okay.
that.
Well, Patreon, isn't it just like,
Patreon's like, your
Yeah, they're
monthly
like, there's a
donation.
chick that eats pickles, and that's like her following on YouTube, and
Yeah.
she makes bank.
Right.
Patreon,
get a lot of that, but.
Patreon is content, exclusive content for money, for a monthly subscription. So the more that you pay, the more exclusive content that you get for that particular bill. So if someone's paying you like $100 a month, you are sending them like, I don't know, like
A
you're
live
sending-
feed from your bathroom.
Right, exactly. So it's like the more money you pay, the more access that they get to things, and that's whether it's backstage or whether it's behind the scenes studio commentary, that type of thing. And that's all going to be a per individual, per business type of basis. Like there's definitely no right answer for that. That's trial and error and testing and audience testing, A and B, like that kind of thing. Takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. Once you do figure it out though, it can be very, very profitable.
You know, I'm gonna call you out, man. We do have somebody in the room today that used to be a distributor. What do you think? What is your thought on all of this stuff?
My response would be the same as Al Franklin's.
I'm sorry, but.
I'm sorry for what I did.
It's supposed to be funny.
My life was supposed to be funny. What happened?
It's supposed to be funny.
What would you like to know about the old days?
I'm just asking if you have an opinion on how things have changed. I mean, obviously you watched it
It's
happen,
just,
dude.
everything changed. I had a business for about 15 years. I started DVD distribution in '91. Worked with Glenn Reynolds a lot.
Oh, did you?
Picking up movies from
that's
Kurt
funny.
Esquire Films.
Yeah.
We put out about 70 movies on DVD, and this little pipsqueak Netflix called up and says, "If you give us your movies." Okay, fine. The next thing I know, it was like, there's no more videos for us. And I have to go back to Omaha.
That's so sad. That's the saddest thing I've heard today.
And how's China? If you've been hanging out in China.
I did a script in China, worked on a horror script for 4 months there, and then a TV series. But it's Chinatown, Jack. Everything changes. I talked to Dorothy a little bit about trying to sell their movies over there, and there's like people wanted American movies, but then the censorship changed a little bit more, and Xi Jinping's, there's a lot of crackdown on things going on. So I kind of gave up on it. It's just too crazy.
And it's changing so
Well, they
fucking
had
fast.
they had their own Netflix came up
Of course.
about 3 or 4 years ago, and then a couple of Chi, it's called, and a couple other ones. And suddenly, the government wasn't watching too close. They were knocking out these little horror movies for nothing. They were just ridiculous, and so everyone jumped in there, and a lot of money went into it. And before you can turn around, suddenly the government's looking at them again and controlling it, and suddenly it just disappeared. So I can only explain. I wish it would have worked, but it didn't. Now I'm trying to finish this horror movie I did 5 years ago. I'm down to the titles. If I could just get the titles done.
Steve, what are you gonna do with it when it is done? Where are you gonna distribute it?
Cinerama, Hollywood, oh, that's gone. I don't know what to do with it. It's just kind of like, you know, show to a bar somewhere and hope somebody shows up. And, I sent to a couple distributor friends I know, but you know, it's too low budget, nobody's in it. And nothing probably.
Yeah.
Some nice film festivals around.
Hmm?
Some nice film festivals around.
Yes, there is.
I think when we're talking about big name talent, I think people are relying on that a little bit too much. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of, well, this has been my battle. Like, so with Omaha, like, there's a lot of talent here in Omaha. And so, like, I've been trying to push local talent to get them up there rather than like a larger name talent or whatever. And I think that's what we all need to do is promote our local talent that we've got and keep building each other up rather than like relying on something else. Because that will help the economy here, that will help the industry here, is if we continue to do that. Obviously having a big name doesn't hurt, and when you're talking about the larger scheme of things, but I think continuing to build like what we have here, like Andrea sitting right there, she was just amazing in a film that I saw. Thanks. And like promoting that local
so
talent, and just keeping that going. I think that will help the industry here a lot more. It will help the Omaha Film Festival. It will help NIFP. It will help everybody else if we just keep promoting that talent. Like I want to work with David. I haven't yet the chance to work with him, but I think that's what we have to do. I think we have to support each other.
Yeah, and spinning that off even further, I think that this conversation for some of you may have sounded a little bit bleak, but let's not forget that the real reason that we do this stuff is because we can't fucking help ourselves.
Amen.
You know?
It's an addiction.
It is. We're addicted. We're passionate. We need to do this. So I mean, regardless of whether or not any of us think we're going to make any money at all doing this, we have no choice than to just do, right? Just do the work and make the movies and tell the stories, and if we're lucky, somebody looks at it and goes, "That didn't suck."
It works if you work it.
That was from Mike Johnson.
God, I can't wait to hear that one. That didn't suck.
So
Great job.
you guys know what I'm saying. We're running close to having to wrap this up. So does anybody have any questions for anybody?
It's a multi-part question, I guess. As far as like a walkthrough, when you're getting ready to distribute a film, as far as like people that you're talking to, what percentages and what parts of the creative rights that you expect to keep, like some of the little finer details like that, maybe like tips for negotiating so that you're not like, being walked all over like a doormat. Essentially how to speak the language of a distributor and so that everybody wins, essentially. So that you
is there such
Steve's right in that.
Entertainment lawyer.
I will say this, by the time your film is going, distributors are looking at it, they're usually not interested in making any creative changes. It's done, especially, let's just say you're working at a micro budget level. I don't know,
well,
right?
yeah,
That is
of
a higher
course.
level, right? They might ask you about the title. That happened with us.
Yeah. Poster was the other thing.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's a
poster
good,
lot,
exactly,
yeah, a lot,
right,
yeah.
that. And other than that, the only thing, and Steve's totally right, is you want a lawyer to look at that contract and make sure that you're not getting, that it doesn't say anything that you wouldn't have expected inside of it.
Am I wrong in thinking that like a distribution deal is very similar to what a record deal would be in the music industry? Am I wrong in thinking, I guess in thinking along and
They're essentially just leasing the rights to show it in a specific area, place, and time.
Okay.
And that's really all it is.
And take all the money
And then-
for you.
And then things are variable, the time, the market,
But the only variable you have the power to
you
change.
know, well, I mean, they're variable, like, it's not like a blanket. I mean, the contract's gonna be for a certain amount of time, a certain market, and the contract from somebody else might be for a different amount of that.
I see.
Unless you have a big movie, you have no power. You're lucky for them to take it.
It's true, and our experience is that
No, those are, I just
that,
those are the specific items that are gonna be in.
that contract is between the distributor and whoever's representing the movie. Now, if you as the movie's, you know, as the producer or the director or whatever, you know, on your side, if you want to haggle with, you know, the people you made the film with about who gets what and all that kind of stuff, that's your call. I mean,
Right.
distributor don't give a shit.
I see.
They don't care.
Well, and I'm just thinking in terms of creative rights, not just like money rights is like, oh well, how much power do they have to change certain parts of what you've already made? But you already answered that question for me.
They're not gonna dare to change it.
Okay.
It's just not gonna be worth it to them to do anything. They might say, in terms of deliverables, they might go, we need these things from you, and you might have to pay to get those.
Okay.
But when it comes to the creative stuff, unless you're talking about like what you're dealing with in, you know, torture scenes and stuff like that for
foreign markets,
censorship. Okay. So what in all of your opinions do you think is a fair percentage for a distributor to get with your creative property, with distributing your creative property?
You mean as far as financial?
Yes.
All of it.
It's fair.
They take all of it until.
We don't take all of it.
They take, dude, you're a whole distributor. You got out before all the crooks got in.
Oh my gosh, you
You're a
was
crook.
the
I love this place.
Let's put it.
Somebody give Dana a hug.
They will take all of your money until you qualify the books.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, it's your last line of defense. So that's why there's a thing called minimum guarantee.
So could I get a number with that? I know numbers are very uncomfortable to talk about in this
Around
industry.
25 to 35% usually.
Okay.
Or, you know, what they will do is they'll take all, some make you pay money. I think that's ridiculous, but usually they'll take their expenses off the top, which could be marketing fees, which could be going to festivals, which could be getting new cars. And then they'll take their 35% distribution fee, and whatever's left supposedly goes to you.
I see. Okay.
But here's the thing, the more money there is, the more they're gonna want it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, in our case, we did not get screwed over by our first distributor. They paid us, you know, but we had
Right.
no problem with that. But I mean, the amount of money was tiny.
Right.
We really could have given a damn.
But if that's outlined in the contract, then it is what it is, right? I mean, unless it's worded to the point where, oh, where it's kind of like tax brackets, you know, when they do your taxes every year. So if it's like, if you make over X amount of dollars, we're taking this much percentage from your cut of it, or if it's, you know, in this tax bracket, we're taking this much. I guess I'm wanting to know, is that all established in the contract from the get-go, or is it going to fluctuate and change depending on the distributor?
Every distributor is different. P&A is like print and advertising. They'll have that up front. We were fortunate. We signed a contract that has we have nothing. If they make $1, we get a percentage of it. They get a percentage. We don't. If they made posters, they'll travel overseas. None of that comes out of ours. Their percentage pays for that. So we're fortunate. That's why we signed with them. Our other two deals were completely opposite. They were front loaded. So like, you know, let's say after they made the first $50,000, then it would kick in.
So it's like a deposit essentially. They want
that's their P&A, right? That's our print and advertising. But that could be, you know,
And that's where
they could be printing stuff in the back
Yeah.
room and charging you $100 an hour, and you wouldn't know, right?
Oh,
There's no way to
hell
prove.
no.
I mean, I don't know, Steve. I'm just being. I mean, you know, it can be kind of shady.
What about
but
the new
on-
cars?
But yeah. So, but that's
You know, I don't know how it is today, but it's like their expenses you know, what exactly was that expense for? You know, the festival, and how much, you know, how much did they really pay for the poster and the trailer and the post-production on it? And did they have kickbacks for the people that were doing that stuff?
Or do they own the company on this? Their other company owns that. You know, they have a piece of another company, and that company's printing for them, or they're making the DVDs and they're charging a certain rate. You know, all those.
Are they taking it to con and really just drinking,
Yes.
or are they actually going to the market?
So it seems like a judgment call as far as like who you're dealing with.
You have to ask around.
Asking around for other people's experiences and trusting your gut, more or less, is what it seems like it comes down to.
Getting a lawyer.
Yes, and a lawyer.
Out of everything that I've heard here, Dave kind of gave us an insight to the most recent, right? We're probably the most recent distributed film here. He gave us some insight that kind of gets forgotten, and that is he decided that because of his negotiation, he spent $5,000 or whatever dollars that they originally said we will use to distribute the film. Instead, he decided to say, well, put it to marketing, right? Instead of anything else. That limits them from doing any kind of spend. So his contract basically said you're not allowed to take anything else, but they're like, well, we're going to spend $5,000. No, I'll spend $5,000. Apply it to marketing.
Right.
So in the grand scheme of things, what I think all the responsibility is for us is in the level of filmmaking that we're doing.
Right.
Is to try and not let them do anything but sell the film.
Right.
We'll do our own. Yeah. We'll do our own game. So that they can't say it was a $500 poster. Right. It was a $500 travel to a festival.
Well,
it was a $3,000 like, so you just control, and you'll see that in the contracts. It's right there. It says we're allowed to spend this much. No, you're not allowed to spend zero.
Exactly. Yeah.
You tell me what you're going to spend, and I'll go find the money.
Right.
Right. Then it'll turn into kind of
Make sure that you also read the contract. It's not just a piece of paper that your lawyer reads. It's something that you've got to read and understand with your lawyer.
Oh yeah. I have release forms for all of my clients, so I definitely read over that stuff. So
I think I have one more question that might actually go positive, maybe, on that line of thinking. I know Chad and Dorothy kind of have addressed this, but would you ever consider on your future projects doing something that you both like and you think is profitable to steer it to that kind of modern virality? My example is Aaron Park's documentary about Exarban. I don't think he was a horse racing fan before this, but he saw a story that needed to be told, and is being very smart about airline Hulu. I mean, he did his homework on a subject that he probably didn't even care about before, other than his high school teacher had a bunch of experience with the people that ran it back in the day. Or how would you consider picking a genre or a topic or whatever going forward in a smart businessman sense, business person?
Right. I think I understand what you're saying. Like making something that you think will sell.
Yeah.
Making something
Without
that you
being-
think is gonna, like, let's say, okay, we live in an agricultural state. What if we made a horror movie about farmers? I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? If that's what you want, because I can tell you this right now. I bet if we wanted to make a family film that had strong Christian overtones, I could probably find investors for that. And Chad and I just talked about this recently, where we were like, is it time to do that? And then I just thought, no offense to family films, but I can't do it.
Pretty sure this is
I don't think you'd have an overlapping fan base.
Don't do it.
I don't think there'd be any fan base transfer at all.
I think you'd be
No.
back over. You'd be back
Thank you,
over
that's
one.
exactly what I'd be doing, so
I think Indoor did really well.
But I think it goes back to, what Dave said, the whole, what'd you say, the riches are in the niches, right?
Niches.
And that's what Aaron did. And that was smart.
Right? Now that too.
I'm pretty sure my reaction to that conversation was something like this. Oh God! Oh God! Something like that.
This is not your passion. It's not your passion.
I don't know, what about you?
I think it comes back to relationships, and that will maintain some of the viability of the project. And so if it's something you want to do and you have strong supportive relationships, then it could go forward and be profitable because that support is there, as opposed to like thinking about it strictly as a genre sense or like, yeah.
It was a loaded question.
And then just two other comments about the community cultivation. Film Streams is opening up the new theater, and they're going to have some neat programming for local filmmakers to get it on a larger screen. So that'll help with cultivating more local community here. And then also Jonathan Richard is an entertainment lawyer over here, so if you need help, I'm looking for Thank you, that's great. Yes. But we need to help each other. So.
There you go.
And so back to the question.
Mark, you gonna do rom-coms?
I would have no idea how to make money on anything. So if I made a rom-com, it could potentially succeed only because it would be wrong. It wouldn't be done correctly like a rom-com should. So it would be odd enough that it might succeed. So maybe.
I would watch it.
Right?
If you did it.
I know, right?
I'm gonna make a musical.
There you go.
So.
That's too much work.
Yeah. It's like, does it pay? It's hard enough to do a film.
Right.
Why do a film that you're not passionate about?
Yeah.
Right.
It's really all it comes down to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you gotta have some love of the script somehow before you can dive into it, because it's so painful in the process sometimes, especially if you're, soloing on some things, and it can be really brutal. So you want to be able to tell stories that you want to tell. Yeah, but on the other hand, too, I get it. I want to make, right? Yeah. I mean,
Depends on how many zeros are on the end of that check.
right. Yeah. But we designed our project around all of our contracts with everybody that was on it. Everybody gets a piece of the film if we make money. There's a budget a budget that's set forward. Everybody gets paid out of that budget first, and then from that budget it goes to percentages. So anybody that worked on Black Luck is going to make some type of money if we make money. Could be $10 or $2,000. I have no idea.
That's still awesome.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
still cool.
Because we wanted people. Part of the reason I think I keep trying to make it work is because I'm like, I got all these people that have, not so much expectations, but kind of expectations, but at least I want to show them that like it works. This model can work in this city. We can all come together and we can, work on something, and you're going to actually profit from it down the line at some point. So it's kind of what we did.
Yeah. What was the original question?
How much you're willing to tailor your genre to tell your version of the story?
I just finished another screenplay called Trance, which is about hobos in Nebraska. And
Feature.
Yeah, another feature. And I kind of get stuck in a genre for some reason. Like I love the Great Depression, and so I kind of get stuck in that genre for a little bit. Or I wrote a one-man show called Carney, which is about carnival workers. And so like I like the introspective, like going and talking to people and interviewing people. So I interviewed like 20 carnies, and then I wrote 18 monologues based on those 20 interviews that I did. So I like really getting into and digging into people's personal lives.
Back to the stories part. Right.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, thank all you guys for sharing what you could about the monetary getting it out there side, even though that's changed since some of us have hit go on our last feature. And hopefully, I like the business model. David, hopefully that is some of my guilt on going forward with features, is a lot of those are built on the backs of interns. And at some point that's not fair, that a lot of filmmaking is built on people up and coming in the industry, and some of them are really good at it, and it breaks some of them and they go work in a bank. But our job to try and promote the art part of it while making some
I
money,
want to say
right?
something about David, because you didn't say this, and when we started those Shakespeare noodles, which was just a little dream about something good that we knew that happened, and we wanted to make a good thing. We just wanted to make something that was just about something good happening.
Fun and happy, yeah.
And what are we gonna, what's the end thing gonna be? We talked about that. And the one thing that we always come back to, that we say over and over at our house is, I don't care, but when we're done with it, we're not gonna give it away. And I think that if you're gonna make something, that you're gonna put it into it, I think that that's a good thing to have kind of behind you. And also that I noticed that everybody out there that I've worked with, I know, has done what they've set out to do, to some extent. Like, and that has helped me to do this thing, that everything I work on, because this is all, filmmaking is all a new art form for me as an artist that I never thought I'd have any interest in. And so everything I do, I have a learning goal for, and then write it off. So for instance, like you were saying, learn how to do this on this film, and then move on, until we can get to the block book feature thing. And I'm so
You
I want to
you
thank.
got a feature next year, right? Is that what you guys are working on? So.
Yeah, yes, we are working on a feature.
That's great.
We're we are.
And you're gonna run it through NIFP, I thought, right? Or,
Yes. Yeah, and I don't know if he sent the budget in, he was gonna.
Not yet. That's a great idea. It's coming.
I mean, isn't it a great idea?
Yeah, very good.
But things, that's something that you said early on, that you'd work on a lot of things and then they're all free out there. And, to some extent on your new stuff, yes, but then after you start to like reach your own pinnacle to where you think that you have something worth distributing, to do that with it. And I think that's valuing your own work.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Sweet.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. No, thank
Talk amongst yourselves. Good work.
It was like right in front of the door.
Thank you. I didn't realize how long it was.